Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Lutfia Ramadhani Hasibuan from English Education Student Maritim Raja Ali Haji University. I will be explain the oral presentation and the midterm text explanation. The journal. The title is the use of podcast in improving student speaking skills. And the next introduction, speaking is widely known and as an ability to share thoughts, ideas, and intention to the other people by using a language. And according to speaking representation and interactive process, which involves of producing and processing or receiving introduction in interactional and transactional. In addition, they mentioned that speaking is a productive skill which consists of systematic that carry out a meaning. This means that speaking plays an important role in communication. What possibility could it be appropriately in speaking is by introducing an alternative media. The podcast, according to the term, podcast is a communication between the words of pod ID from the branded iPod and broadcast. The podcast is an audio or video file that is uploaded to the website where the website user can download it through the internet free. The podcast gives chance for teachers to support student journal of English language and education in developing speaking skills. The idea of using podcast media is based on the following statement from many experts in the literature. Podcast is believed not just accelerating listening skill, but also is stimulate the other languages are for the instance pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, and learning activities. And A, podcast as language learning material. There are a ton of technologies invited, and one of tools which provides material for language learning is called the podcast. The podcast and uploading audio or video while the internet has emerged as source in the academic field, and it provides many kinds of material in learning. Word, the podcast was the convenient and easy to use format. As was previously stated, podcast is surely easy to access. It will be attractive and it motivates the student in learning. This understanding makes them find the learning process enjoyable. The study assumes that the podcast media contribution for the student in improving their speaking performance. And then the next, B, speaking skills. Speaking is a productive skill that is similar to writing. This means that speaking is an interactive process of communication that connects ideas between speaker and interlocutor with a certain purpose. Referring to speaking is the process of sharing and construction, the sense of using oral or verbal in variety contexts. Speaking and act of making vocal sound help to assure the listener in the following convincing manner the talk will. C, aspect of speaking. Firstly is vocabulary. Vocabulary is a word which has its meaning in very function. Second is grammar. This is a grammar or the oral and written form. The third is pronunciation. It is the process of pronunciation a particular word in the proper manner. And then fourthly is fluency. It means know about how he or she expresses ideas without using foreign word while taking to the other course. And the last five is accuracy. According to accuracy refers to understanding word, right in structure, syntax, and be better in checking the meaning of the message of language without part of mistake. And the computer assisted language learning call. Call none as term used by teacher and student and using the computer, a part of language course in the teaching and learning process. Call covers material design technologies, authentic material, and models of interaction issue and are in teaching learning. And E, the use of call in speaking skill. Regarding to this reason, call may be able to solve and varies in supporting in learning process, saying the computer is effective and easy to use. Indeed, that benefits of the computer can be reached depends on how we see or hear. And besides, the teacher and student could find learning material to the internet free. And next, the methods. Number one, research method. This research employs experimental approach where one group tests and protests, design and implement. This research, the finding out an actual description and to prove the hypothesis wherever the aspects of media teaching called improve and fluency and pronunciation. Hence, in collecting the data, two set of tests and pre-test and post-test, which experimental group. Number two, research instrument. The research collect the data by using a set of oral tests and pre-test and post-test. And compulsory protest was conducted to measure the student achievement in the speaking after applying several treatments. The researchers also use it is smartphone as to record their speaking performance. This helped the researcher analyze their speaking. The student performance was marked objective. Number three, technique data collection. Number one, pre-test. In the first meeting, the researcher explanation all step in case avoiding understanding process. Then the researcher asked them one by retell the broadcast based on the topic given. Number two, treatment. In the treatment meetings, the researchers used podcast as the main media improving the students' speaking skills. But in the treatment process, the research used different podcasts taught in each meeting. Number three, the post-test. The post-test at the end of the meeting. The researchers gave them a post-test. The specific aim of this post-test was to identify their improvement after such a treatment session. And number four, the technique of data analysis. For data analysis, the researcher analyzed student score based on aspect of speaking progress by broad and component of speaking was categorized in 4 bench scales. In addition, the researchers recorded their speaking and the researchers analyzed their speaking performance easier. The researchers parsed our mean score from raw data from a median score to the finally after the conclusion and finding out the final result of the test, compared them to the figure out if there any difference. And next, the finding and discussion. Number one, research findings. This pre-experimental research found that there is improvement of students' speaking skill by using the podcast. Furthermore, the score of pronunciation aspect also increased after student had the treatment as planned. In addition, the student gained better score in the protest and then pretest. Number two, hypothesis testing. The researchers calculated score what the suggested. The levels of significance had been determined before the researchers conducted that experimental research, and it indicated that research supported the alternative hypothesis. Number three, the result of speaking aspect in the pretest and protest. In teaching speaking, there are several aspects required to be mastered by students such as grammar, fluency, accessory, vocabulary, and pronunciation. However, the researchers limited to focus at improving student fluency and pronunciation aspect. And figure I below present feature information of speaking aspect score. And the last of this question, This study was aimed at finding out whether the use of podcast media in teaching can improve student, especially in fluency and pronunciation. When the researchers have done analyzing all data, it was the researchers supported the alternative hypothesis. As described in the research background, the student, the difficult and speaking performance. For example, in the pretest, several students product incorrect pronunciation and not fluent in speaking. Based on the explanation, it is flawless. The implemented podcast media can increase student speaking skill, where the result saw it statistically significant was found. Furthermore, the researcher also found the application of podcast media in the class made up students more active in practicing speaking. For instance, the student feel a bit nervous and less confident in performance they speak in front of the class. Choose Science podcast is one authentic material and real language which product by native speaker, so the student can imitate the way how the native speak real language. It is believed that podcast media could enhance student in building critical thinking, comprehension, and expanding vocabulary, and it is more enjoyable while the student can be read text and listen at the same time. And then the last conclusion. The researchers concluded that the podcast media demonstrated positive fruition on student speaking and ability. In education, this media could cope with student problems in speaking, such as incorrect pronunciation by fluency. Given the point, applying podcast media in teaching speaking show positive result in assisting students to improve speaking performance, especially pronunciation and fluency. Based on finding of this research, the researchers would like to pros some suggested for teachers this media in a profile to be implemented in the classroom. This help teachers to improve students' speaking skill and to provide correct teaching materials. Nowadays, teachers do not need to worry about how to provide suitable material for teaching. Okay, I think that's all in my or the presentation. Sorry if my pronunciation is my clear, and goodbye for now. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.